Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever. Whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.
It's been almost a solid month of constant policy changes and executive orders that have turned life upside down for thousands of Americans. What does it all mean? And what are the best ways to process all of the changes? Should we simply ignore some things and focus the bulk of our attention on others? Coming up on the next Another View, it's analysis and perspective with the Another View Roundtable. Pundits Dr. Eric Claville, Allison Moore, Gaylene Kanoyton, and LaShawna Epps. I'm Another View producer Lisa Godley, and the conversation gets going right after this news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Another View producer Lisa Godley, filling in for Barbara Hamley today. Before we delve into today's discussion, I'd like to share a little info about a new segment on our sister station, WHRO 90.3 FM. It's called Noteworthy, and all through Black History Month, Noteworthy will showcase Black composers. Tonight at 6:05 p.m., you'll learn about Undine Smith Moore, one of the most significant composers of her day. And tomorrow at 11 a.m. and 6:05 p.m., you can learn about Damian Jeter, a composer who knows no boundaries when it comes to infusing various types of music in his compositions. It's called Noteworthy and airs at 11 a.m. and 6:05 p.m. weekdays on our sister station, WHRO FM 90.3. Well, it's time to talk current events. And spearheading this discussion is the amazing Another View Roundtable. Joining me in the studio today, political analyst and creator of the award-winning Claville Report, Dr. Eric Claville. Eric, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hampton NAACP president and the connector, Gaylene Kanoyton. Gaylene, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, she's an HR expert. She's Virginia's clean comedian, and she's the host of More Laughing in the Morning. Allison.
Hey, y'all. Hey.
Allison, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure. And joining the roundtable for the first time, certified life coach and CEO of A Beautiful Life, LaShawna Epps. Sean, thank you for being here.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Eric, I'm going to start today's discussion with you.
No pressure.
Because so much has happened in the past 3.5 weeks. It's difficult to remember it all. I'm a journalist. I'm, part of that 24-hour news cycle, so I'm constantly watching, and even I can't keep up with everything that's going on. But I need you to kind of break down what things we should really be focusing on right now and paying attention so that we don't miss anything.
Well, you said 3 weeks. Keep in mind the presidency is 208 weeks, so we have 205 weeks to go. But in those 3 weeks, what we've experienced, in my opinion, and as history has shown us, is expedited chaos in our federal government. We have an individual who is in the White House, our leader of the free world, of this nation and democracy, that is systematically dismantling the federal government as we see it. I mean, let's just take the things that we see happening on television. I'll talk about some of the things happening behind the scenes. The dismantling of the Department of Education. There were individuals that were locked out of the Department of Education. They could not get in, even if they had credentials and so forth. But they were locked out. They could not go into the office building. There were individuals that were offered a buyout for their work to lead the federal government. And recently we just had a discussion prior to the show. Of course, the judge allowed the buyouts to take place, but then he's fired those individuals that did not take the buyout. In addition to that, you have a reduction of the federal workforce of over 145,000 people, and mostly here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You have the executive order, and all this is done by executive order, and unelected officials in the Department of Government Efficiency, a made up entity that has an office in the White House that does press conferences in the Oval Office, a sacred place behind a resolute desk with a little kid running around, just out of control, without decorum, in dress and style that is not in line with the way that we carry ourselves or the way that we're seen. A baseball cap in the Oval Office, come on. What I'm saying is that what we're seeing and what we're experiencing is something we've never seen or experienced before. And it's a group of people, the majority of Americans have voted for this. And you have to ask yourself, what is America thinking as it relates to how we conduct ourselves and how we want America, the world, to see America? This is Black History Month. Still, it is for right now. Of course, DEI was on the chopping block, or is on the chopping block. Many federal agencies, if not all, have been told to wipe out their DEI offices. Individuals have been impacted by this immediately. I have a colleague whose wife was employed in one of these entities who lost their job. You're talking individuals that were bringing in six figures in the federal government in the programs, and just overnight, they're done. In addition to that, we're also looking at what is taking place as it relates to trade. The tariffs are basically tax on goods and services imported into the U.S. With our major trade partners. You're looking at the use of acts back in 1700s to actually deport individuals from the country, some that are legally here and some that are working to be legally here, but deport them back to various countries. You're looking at the turn of the about face on campaign promises immediately, not over time. We're talking immediately after taking office that this administration has done. At the end of the day, we're looking at a dismantling and a takeover of federal government, to which damage, I believe, is going to be irreparable, and the harm that is being caused. And it's going to be very hard to turn the corner and correct this. So many people are saying, where's the opposition? Many people are saying, where are the protests? Many people are saying, where are the Democrats? Many people are saying, what can be done? But in essence, what could have been done could have happened back in November. What could have been done could have happened where the opposition could have laid out a plan that was more in depth to get people to vote. But the other part of it is the education and the understanding of what's taking place. And I believe that is the issue that we're at. I believe we're in a constitutional crisis. I listened to a colleague this morning that said he's not quite sure we are, because once branches of governments decide not to do what other branches of governments have the authority to tell them not to do, then that's a constitutional crisis. We're already there, because you have the players that are in place on the chessboard of politics and policy and government that are in line and ready not to carry out a directive that they're given to stop doing certain things and to do whatever they want to do. So I'll stop there, but there's a lot to fill in from there.
Because I got something I want to ask Gaylene in just a second, but so what we're seeing now, how much of it was laid out in 2025? Most of it? Half of it?
Yeah.
All of it?
Yeah. Well, the answer is all of it. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to read directly from, it's just a really short sentence from project2025.org. And again, we've done many shows on this. Or we've talked about it. I've moderated forums on this, town halls last year, 2024. But it says, if you go to project2025.org, this is the conservative, extreme right-wing Heritage Foundation. Individuals from 140 individuals, over 140 that were in the former Trump White House of 2016, and individuals who are part of the Heritage Foundation and around the D.C. Area, and 100 organizations in America that have poured into this document. It's over 900 pages. But in essence, it's a 180-day playbook. And it says, quote, "Time is short and conservatives need a plan. The project will create a playbook of suggestions that future presidential administrations could take into their 180 days in office to bring quick relief to America's suffering from the left's devastating policies." It also simply says that this is a comprehensive policy guide that offers specific proposals for every major federal agency, pulling from the expertise of the entire conservative movement. The dismantling of the Department of Education was first and foremost. Dismantling it, giving power back to the states, which our governor is in favor of, by the way. In addition to that, subsidizing private schools and religious schools, dismantling FEMA, and they're putting this on the guise of waste. You do not eliminate agencies saying that you're investigating waste. No, you go through a comprehensive study to find out where, quote unquote, waste is. And if you talk about waste, we could talk about, giving contracts that are non-compete to multi-billion dollar companies or billionaires such as Elon Musk. And we'll get into him later, because a South African-born immigrant born in apartheid South Africa is here in America that is dictating policy of our democracy, standing next to a president, in essence, who really wants to get back at people that tried to get him. That's really what he's concerned about. He made it
clear that was what he was going to do.
That was it. So all this other stuff is really being pushed, and he's allowing it to be pushed and allowing it to be done. And to all the Americans, again, this is not about red or blue. This is not about Democrat or Republican. This is not about this. I'm talking to Americans. To all the Americans that are looking at this and defending this, shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Gaylene, you're the president of Hampton NAA. I know people.
I'm the political action chair for the state in Virginia in the ACP too. So we do a lot of policy work.
So what are people saying to you, and what's going on?
Well, let me just say this: I got 2 more payments on my cheap cracked eggs, dozen of eggs. I got 2 more payments to make. That's what this last election was about. It's about, about food and about, what's in your pockets or whatever. But the bigger overall arching picture is that people don't understand that DEI is economics, right? If you look at the 1902 convention, it just spells out what Project 2025 is. They've always told us what they were going to do. They told us that in 1902. They told us in 1964 with the Southern Strategy, and they told us with Project 2025. What the bigger issues and what I've been working for the past couple weeks is this immigration issue. People don't understand that it was like, oh, that's them, that's not us. Oh, yes, it is us. Because 76% of black people are affected by this immigration. One out of 5 are being deported. And the thing about it is that some of us are getting caught up into this ICE thing because you're being confused as being like an immigrant or you're a descendant of an immigrant. I just got off the phone this morning with the American Communities organization, and they were giving me these stats, and I was just mortified by it. So people are afraid right now. People are afraid. Senator Warner, Senator King has done massive calls, Congressman Scott. We are in unprecedented times right now. And, of course, everybody got the answers. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do right now is put together a plan. And that's what it is, a plan that's being put together. I've always said that we need to have plaintiff training to become plaintiffs because everything is going to be in the courts for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
And we need to empower people on how to become a plaintiff and not afraid. So right now, people are just like in disarray. And that's what Trump is very good at that, these moving targets. Don't look at what's over here. Look at what's over here because he might be talking about DEI. He might be talking about DEI over here, but what he's doing is dismantling everything over here, and when you talk about these federal employees and you talk about, like you said, FEMA and all these different agencies and bringing in Doge, more black people know about Doge than they knew about voting. That's just it just mortifies me to even think about that. I got people calling me up talking about, well, what are you going to do about Doge? You're like, well, what did you do in this November when you were supposed to vote? But right now, people are just trying to find their footing. In Virginia, this November election is critical for us because this administration believes in states' rights. States' rights never met well for black folks because of slavery and civil rights. However, the federal government protected us during that time. Federal government is not going to protect us. States' rights, we're going to have to make sure that we elect the right people that's be in the executive offices, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the attorney general, and make sure we get more seats in the House and maintain the House. Now, NAACP is not partisan, but we political as hell. And so at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that we elect candidates that align with our agenda. And that's what it's about right now. It's about the election in November because Virginia is the only progressive, we're a Commonwealth, but I'm going to say state in the South. And you better believe they're going to come after us because they want all of it to come back to the 1902 convention. And that's white supremacy. That's white supremacy. And that's the marginalized black Virginians as well.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Allison, I have a question for you. Oh, you were going to say something?
Oh, yeah.
Go right.
I was like, oh, questions. Wait, hold on. I ain't ready for no question now. I appreciate these kind of conversations being with Dr. Eric and with Gaylene. What you say? You say you the president. Put some respect on your name. Who are you? The president of the what?
No, I'm just saying I'm political action chair for the state for the NAACP. But I'm president of Hampton, though. But I'm just saying that we do a lot of policy work.
Because this gives me, like, politics for dummies. But not dummies, but, people like me less smart about it, because what I've been seeing, and then people in my community that we ascribe to, I'm not that political, I don't know what's going on, is the reverse impact that it's been having that we weren't aware of it because we didn't know what was going on. Like things like, what is the story with him banning books in school and how that has impacted Bibles? And so there is that line of, when you think, this doesn't have anything to do with me, and then it comes right into your backyard. Has that been happening?
Well, think about it. Think it back during slavery. It was illegal to teach black people how to read. The slaves how to read. They couldn't even pray. They had to start their own little churches or whatever underground. And if you look at Mary Peake, just here in Hampton, who had taught, who had taught after slavery blacks how to read. Mm-hmm. Of course, education has always been the forefront of the derail it. Don't teach us anything so we can stay dumb, right? And so we always had. That's why you had, you've had your leaders. You look at what Harriet Tubman did. Bring people. She said she could have freed more people if they only knew that they were, free slaves, right?
Yeah. You said you had a question for me.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you a little bit about the canceling of celebrations. We had talked about that. What are your thoughts on everything that's been happening with that lately?
I mean, I'm definitely I'm just sitting around in a state of clutch my pearls, like, dang, this is crazy. It's getting crazy out here in these streets. But with the cancellation of celebration, and then like you said, but then President Trump is still doing some little short things, a Black History event and et cetera. It's just really weird to see it play out and how he's playing on certain communities. So for some degree, President Trump just gives sensationalists. He gonna do whatever can get people in their feelings. But then you do something exactly opposite, like how you cancel Black History Month, but then you're still trying to pander to certain blacks that you think it benefits you to keep Black community confused about how negative you are for our community, our progression, and et cetera. Specifically, Snoop and Soulja Boy, Nelly, they out here, they got their butts handed to them because they were performing or accepted opportunities to come and pander or perform at this campaign's events. But then at the same time, we canceling DEI programs. We're doing things that are harmful to the community. So it leaves us at a state of y'all got to pick a side, hip hop or these influencers and leaders. And, for me watching it, I'm just but when are we going to look back at Trump though? Y'all see he's
that's
doing
that's the moving target.
That's the moving target
That's the moving target I'm talking about. Because now they say, well, if you have a seat at the table, then they can speak for us. Well, look at his administration. Ain't no seats at the table in the administration for Black folks. Mm-hmm. It's not. They have one for who's in charge of HUD who don't believe in HUD. Really. So I mean, just look at who's in his administration.
Yeah. Sean, I'm coming to you now because people are, to me, more anxious now than ever before. They're going through an array of emotions right now. Some are angry.
Mm-hmm.
Most are frustrated. These are just people I'm talking to that walk up to me on the street. Anxiety is at an all-time high. Any suggestions, recommendations on how we get through this particular time and maintain our mental health?
Well, I will first start by saying I don't know if you've heard of the phrase before, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. So it's about your perception, and everyone's perception is unique to them. It does not automatically transfer to someone else because it goes back to your belief system as an individual. So that goes back to your childhood. As to, we know when babies come into the world, they don't know anything. So whoever was responsible training you, raising you, or what have you, you adopted their belief system. They gave you theirs. And then you have your life experiences, you have other influences from other people, you have societal conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever your environment was like has created the habit of you, the person of you, and the lens that you see out of. So when it comes to your life as it stands today, if you are the person who are stressed out all the time, you have a lot of anxiety, you have to take ownership of that personally. Because if you defer to everything outside of you and someone in the shame and the blame game, because of that, and you're deferring, denying, and delaying your own happiness, waiting until something happens. And so when you live your life like that, you're never going to be happy. Happiness is a choice. You have to own that for yourself. I'm married. I cannot put the responsibility of my happiness on my husband. Of course, we have certain things that we expect from one another. We understand certain things that we understand about each other, but it is not my husband's responsibility to make me happy 24/7. We are all flawed. We live in a flawed world, flawed people. So perfection is never going to exist. It's always an impossible standard, whether it comes to individuals or what is playing out in the world. So you have to come back to you, because that's where your control always is. And I believe a lot of people are anxious and upset. Yes, change is going to create chaos, period. Because as people, as humans, we don't like it because we want control. But we can't always have control. Your control is with you. That's where it lies 100% of the time. So it's not that things aren't going on that are chaotic, things that are, some things are bad or what have you. But if you are the person that is wanting to be happy, to not be anxious, not be stressed out, you got to come back to you. And you have to learn how to manage your thoughts, because what you think about and wherever your focus is, that is going to direct and guide your life, and it's going to expand. So you really, really have to learn how to go within. And I have something that I call the 4 A's. You have to acknowledge, accept, adapt, and then adjust your life. You have to acknowledge and accept what you don't have control over. I can't do anything about this. That's on the outside of me. And don't get me wrong. Prayer for me is my number one thing, because I cast care on God for things I can't control clearly. So you have to acknowledge and accept what you don't have control of, okay? And be clear with that. And then you come back to yourself and you adapt and you adjust yourself, and you say, well, whatever problem this may be, situation, experience, it's like, okay, what can I do in this situation? You have to be able to understand what it is that you can do with yourself, whether it is affirming yourself, you know what I'm saying, or either, spending some time with people that are good for you to spend time with, opting out of situations or environments or what have you that are not conducive to you personally and your own personal mental health. So once you begin to identify, you can adapt and adjust yourself, and then it's like a reset button for you. But there's some other little things, and we can talk about those later on. But that's just at the face of it from what you just asked me. That is my little quick suggestion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you're just joining us, we're talking with the Another View Roundtable, political analyst Dr. Eric Claville, Hampton NAACP president and connector Gaylene Kanoyton, Virginia's comedian and host of More Laughing in the Morning, Allison Moore, and certified life coach LaShawna Epps. If you'd like to join the conversation, give us a call at 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So much to ingest. Woo. Okay, I see you guys over here talking. What y'all talking about?
Yeah, so I want to piggyback on a couple of things that the roundtable discussed. Gaylene mentioned the agenda. Allison mentioned not know what to do, for those individuals that are out there, just everyday American citizens, that are living their lives, doing everything, that they're trying to do to make ends meet and the like. Gaylene mentioned cracked eggs. Right now, like the staples of living, eggs, milk, and bread, and gasoline. Those are the things that we kind of put our no pun intended all our eggs in one basket to determine whether we're doing good or not, to see how the economy is doing. And as it relates to, President said he was going to bring prices down immediately and so forth and so on during the campaign speech. Things have escalated. Prices have escalated on those staples, and they're going to get worse because of these tariffs that are being placed on these companies. I mean, these countries. Now, the reasoning for that, I'll come back to the reasoning behind all of this in just a moment. But when you take a look at individuals that are getting, chickens and hens in coops, right, at their house, because it's cheaper to get a couple of birds to lay eggs for you daily than to go out and buy, and people scrambling to buy these things. When we take a look at these policies, okay, the question becomes, who can you go to talk about this? There's not going to be anyone that you can go to meaningfully within the federal government to help protect. Now, when we talk about the federal government, Gaylene mentioned earlier, Allison was mentioning who can we call, and Gaylene mentioned about the federal government self-protection. The federal government these entities were created in large part because let's go back to history. We're in Black History Month. We are a country that was built on the back and the blood of slaves. Black people built this country, the wealth of this country, exponentially. A quarter of a millennium, 250 years, with no pay, no money, all right? $0, where it was the perfect pyramid, all right? And our country was able to establish itself in this world as a powerhouse because of that, economically and the like. With that being the case, when you take a look at that history, the federal government after the Civil War, after the Civil Rights Movement, the second Civil Rights Movement, because the first was the Civil War and the Reconstruction era after that, these entities were created to help protect the rights, first of Black people and then all people marginalized in that. So other immigrants, people of color, women, and the like. When you take a look at that, right, and the systematic dismantling of this administration, is to take us back not 65, not 64, not 1865, but take us back to the 1600s, right? Where now you have power that is in pretty much one office, the president, which is authoritarianism, which is basically what you have in Russia and other nations that are dictators and the like. And where you have a police force like the FBI and the Department of Justice that is under you to do your bidding, not to protect individuals, where you don't have a Department of Consumer Protection that is to protect us from bad actors such as corporations and individuals that want to put profits over people and protection. You have a government in which it says, well, we're going to take away protections of federal workers in the civil service. Speaking of civil service, when you talk about the post office, in the first Trump administration, the post office and a lot of it was dismantled under that particular secretary. And then now it's continuing to be impacted, not just in the post office, but across the board. When you look at African Americans and Black wealth and middle class, the post office was a major part of building up the Black middle class in our community. I remember my father telling me he, wanted to be a postal worker, because that was a position that was respected, and that was a position that helped to move up, the Black middle class. But when you start to dismantle when you start to dismantle the protectionisms, when you start to dismantle and the regulations, and you start to neuter the power of our agencies that are meant to protect us, where are we at now, right? You mentioned, a plan. One thing that I do credit the conservatives for is that they look at the long game, right? Mitch McConnell, there was my colleague, Will Levy, sent a clip from a 60 Minutes of Mitch McConnell, how he talked about how he wanted to reshape the judiciary when he saw what happened with, I think it was Bork, that was denied a Supreme Court nomination. But he used that as his chessboard over 40 years to help reshape the judiciary. So when we talk about becoming plaintiffs, it's going to be very hard because the judiciary is stacked with individuals that are part of this conservative. And again, I don't want to give a bad name to conservatives, but I'll say this right wing part of the conservative faction. These MAGAs, the Marjorie Greens, these individuals that really that are not there to govern, but they're there to create chaos and destruction. So when you give that particular power to them, we're in a very we are in a very, very precarious, dangerous situation, because when we have the opportunity, we've had the opportunity to say, okay, there are checks and balances, but when you take the balance away, you take the checks away, and everything leans to one side. If you look at a scale of justice, everything leans to one side. What do you have now to lean it back? Kareem Jeffries, the minority leader, there was an article that came out this morning from yesterday how, in their, of course, every day they have, private caucus, and they talk about the various things. And they were upset that these, quote unquote, liberal groups are pushing their constituencies to call Capitol Hill, their offices, saying, y'all need to do more, and so forth and so on. And what they're not finding is that the electorate, they're not finding where those answers are. They're not finding that there are individuals that are fighting for them. So when you look and see where those individuals are not fighting for them, the question becomes, what are you doing to help to effectuate the correction or the stopping of this, to correct it? And I have a feeling that if we continue down this road, it's not going to be a lot that we're going to be able to do to correct the ship. Like I said, you can't turn an aircraft carrier on the dime. No,
you cannot.
But one of the things that, President Biden, he put 150 judges on the bench. Lifetime, the most that any president has ever done. He fell short on the federal a little bit more, but these are judges that, you see the progressive judges that are speaking up, that are starting these injunctions and everything. And the judges are going to play a pivotal role in this history that we're going through right now, major role right now. This is the time for all of us to step out of our comfort zone. We have got to step up and step out of our comfort zone, because now this is a critical time. Not only in history. My son is 27 years old, be 28, and I never thought that he would have to have the same fight that I'm having, even worse though. It's the same escalator, same way, different method, but he's going to have to fight the same way that we had to fight.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe. I think the same thing about my daughter. So I was like, wow, I never anticipated that you all would have to see this, see the country like this.
But when you talk about that fight with this generation, I've had this conversation with colleagues. Are they equipped to have this fight?
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of our kids were born into integrated communities. They were born on the Disney, Nickelodeon, my kids on PBS stations and so forth. And that world, that image that everything is a Disney life,
No racism.
Right. And now they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? A lot of them are shocked, that these things are happening if they weren't educated in their homes about certain things that were happening, right? So the question now becomes, are they equipped to fight this? I don't think so. A lot of this generation, they're scared. They don't know. A lot of our parents that were in civil rights, the movement, they told us about it. We saw a lot of it. We were taught those things about our history and, to lean in. And, we'll talk about the Super Bowl later in that performance by Kendrick Lamar. But, listen, at this moment, there's a lot of fear out there. But it's time to lean into truth, and it's time to lean into blackness. Black is beautiful. And I've talked about this before. There's nothing more American than being Black American, because it is the group of people, us, that built this country, that love this country, that even in light of individuals saying that we don't want you in this country, want to have anything to do with you, we say we still love you, we forgive you, we still want to build with you. I mean, there's no greater love, than that type of love that you have for your people, your country, and so forth. So, this is a time to lean in, not shy away from.
No.
And we were talking about the cancellation of certain events. I was supposed to appear on a panel this evening about democracy, to bring democracy from an African American group, and their national leadership sent. I got a message early this morning. They sent a message saying that to cancel these events.
Dang.
Right?
Today.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Happening all the time.
So, you've got individuals of national organizations, Black organizations, that are leaning away, shying away because of what's happening. But it's time to lean into teaching, truth, lean into teaching, history, lean into teaching, what is happening and what we can do to continue to have a democracy in a country that we know and love. And again, we're not teaching, it's not teaching hate. What we're experiencing now is hate. This is just pure evil, to be very honest with you. That's what we're experiencing now.
But I believe, I have faith in our young people. I do. Our young folks, I do. I have faith in them. I think, and oppressed people always step up, and we're going to be joined by others, by the marginalized communities.
But Gaylene, do they know that they're oppressed?
Yeah, they do. Trust they do.
Are.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Well, I'll never forget my son. One time he told me when he was younger that he didn't see color or whatever until he got into that classroom, in fourth grade, and he started seeing the difference to how he was treated. He was always been treated differently because he was in private school up until fifth grade, but he actually was able to experience it in elementary school. But I think that our young folks will step up. I do. I think they will step up. They are seeing it. They're going to start seeing it. The more of the impact of it. As we said before, 90 million people didn't vote in the last election. And if the couch was on the ballot, it would have won the popular vote and the electoral college.
Wow. That's both sad and, just so many
things. It is
things.
sad, but I believe in our young people, though.
All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl before we get to Valentine's Day. Now, there was criticism, because I'm going back to what Eric was talking about. There was criticism about the Black National Anthem being sung before the Super Bowl. Even though 54% of NFL players are Black and about a third of the assistant coaches are Black, there were people saying things like, there's one national anthem. Singing this song is racist and divisive. I want to know what you all think about this.
And let me just say this. It's just that it goes back to white supremacy. That's what it goes back to. We don't belong. America was built on the backs of African America, but let's go back to Native Americans. Let's go back to them. Everybody else was immigrants, and Native Americans was here first. And it's about the diversions. The Black National Anthem doesn't count. You don't count. It's only one national anthem. But we're not inclusive in that nation. We the people? They discount the 14th Amendment. So let's talk about our history. If we go back to the history, we're being discounted on every single level. And that's what they're trying to do. In Virginia, we lost the governor's race behind what? Critical race theory. Mm-hmm. That was taught in law school.
Yeah.
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 When you talk about, what's happening, in society, again, Trump is the mouthpiece and the personality, bold, bombastic, just don't care, that type of thing, that the pre-1964, America really wanted and needed to move forward to do the things that they always want to do. And keep in mind, the Civil Rights Act wasn't something that was, hey, this is a great thing. If it was, you wouldn't need the Civil Rights Act, right? So the Civil Rights Act 1964, Voting Rights Act 1965, I call that the foot on the head of the proverbial snake of racism. Mm-hmm. Each day that we find these things that are happening in the federal government, by the way, part of these things that they're happening, they're wanting, part of the strategy is to take it to the courts, because they believe they have the courts stacked to the point where they can actually get a lot of these things done. So where these executive orders, these injunctions are being filed, they feel they're very well positioned, especially in the U.S. Supreme Court, to turn these. All they need is 5-4. They've got 6-3, solid 4. There's only 3 liberals on the Supreme Court. Just got to make sure you turn, those two, the Chief Justice and Amy Coney Barrett, in the direction that you really want to go, right? Or you can have a plurality vote, right? You can have 4, you can have 2, you have 1 that probably may abstain, and you have 3 liberals. But at the end of the day, a lot of these things can take place and be effectuated in permanently if we're not careful. But going back to the point as relates to what's happening in society in the Super Bowl, it goes back to shut up and dribble. The statement that was made by the Fox.
That's a good one. Let me write that one down.
As long as you entertain me, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But when you start to have an opinion,
Or call me out.
right, then you've gone too far. And we've looked at our sports heroes, our sports stars, and put them on various platforms, and we've put them in society and on pedestals and so forth because of they have that gladiator. We see them as gladiators. We see them as having extra human type talents and abilities and so forth and so on. But we want to see them in the light that we want to see them. But then others don't want to have them, on the stage talking about issues that are affecting society in a way that's not popular. DEI, when we talk about DEI, this administration is the biggest DEI when we say the way that they say unqualified people being in office. This is the most unqualified cabinet that we've seen in the history. I mean, you've got a guy that was on Fox TV who is the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. You got a guy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., just got confirmed as a Secretary of Health. Mm-hmm. That is scary. That is someone who is an anti-vaccine, advocate. That is extremely.
And Tulsi
Gabbard, head of national security. Come on, really? We're in the twilight zone. I'm telling you, you just got to look at this and say, what are we doing? You got somebody who's, I think, she's 27, who's the
press secretary.
Press secretary. I mean, it's not just about age, but the experience, the resume. You can put it on a note card, and you're placing these people. You're placing these people in position of not just prominence, but influence. Mm-hmm. And
a lie.
Absolutely. And then you talk about, Rubio, the head of the Secretary of State, basically a weak representative to pull back the United States from a lot of good that the Secretary of State is supposed to be doing. U.S. aid being dismantled, right? That give aid to black countries. Again, we're going back to this false teaching of DEI, which is basically not wanting to teach real history, the truth, okay? Not wanting to teach the truth because they feel that there is guilt You don't want, your kids to feel guilty about the history of our country and the things that were done. It's setting us up for a fall that we're not ready to experience. I said this before.
And the other thing too, the reason why they're getting rid of all the federal workers so they can have loyalists in there, and you won't have any whistleblowers. So let's just go there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, empires don't fall from the outside; they crumble and fall from the inside. And we're at a point now where our country is being divided intentionally around what is the principles of our country, which is democracy and freedom, right? Listen, you can support who you want to support. That's fine. We can have those conversations. We can have those stump speeches. I'm all for that. I'm all for heated debate, but I'm also for checks and balances. I'm also for law and order. And when we talk about law and order, this group of conservatives cannot say anything about law and order anymore. When you have this J5, this group, this J6 group that was basically given a pass, that was pardoned across the board. That is nauseating. You have police officers that were killed by those. They basically forced their way into the halls, the sacred halls of our government, and just did just terrible things. Things that I was watching it on television, saying to myself, this can't be our country, right? This can't be. And you pardon them. So again, it's just, this is a time to lean into truth, a time to lean into being bold, being courageous, a time to lean into your blackness, a time to lean into, when I say blackness, I mean culture, Black culture, Native American culture. If you are and also white culture, the part that, we're not talking about white, quote unquote, white people doing bad things. We're talking about the culture. It's time to lean into the truth of it, right? And it's time to lean into stand up to help bring our country back from the brink. We're at the brink of our country collapsing because of the foundations and the guardrails being removed.
Well, I'm going to backpedal just a little bit on young people and their involvement, because I think I would classify Kendrick Lamar as a young person. Anyway, Allison, you watched the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yes, I was
along
front
with
row.
128 million other people. 133 million actually watched the halftime show.
The most.
Most watched halftime show. What'd you think? Because there were people that were saying, well, there wasn't a single white dancer on stage. Shouldn't inclusivity go both ways? There were complaints that they couldn't understand what Kendrick was saying. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because especially if it was the I don't see color people. Like, how you know? How you don't want nobody white on the stage? You don't see color. So y'all get into the back of the line. Then the people who were like, I heard it too. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I can understand that sentiment, Susan. Because if I was to listen to Lizard Skinner, what is his name?
Leonard.
Yeah, Leonard
Skinner.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what he was saying either. Like, if this is not your music, if you trying to understand why you didn't Google it or look at the lyrics before he got on the stage, like, we're not gonna play those games. I don't understand what Taylor Swift is saying because I don't listen to. That's just not my vibe. That's not my. So some things that people were saying, it's like, let's just talk about what you really mean. Let's just get into the tea of what you really trying to say. If you didn't like him, it was too much blackness for you. If it made you feel a certain type of way, let's just say that. But I enjoyed the Super Bowl. I like the halftime. I like a good underdog story. Right? So I'm here, shout out to the pop culture girlies. I've been following the whole Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef for a long time. So I liked what was happening there because Drake was, taunting that man. He said at the beginning of the year he was dropping back-to-back hits. Where you at, Kendrick? Drop your diss track. He was using Tupac AI and all kinds of things to stir that man up. So he put his foot down, like the kids say. I'm going to put my foot on your throat and I'm not getting it up until you tap out. I don't know if that's the best illustration I should be using. I'm going to come with a different one. But I thought it was really good. I mean, there were a lot of Easter eggs in it and a lot of discussions about, did you see, how they laid the grass? What you think about the grass on the side of the 50-yard line? Like, it was all of that. But as an artist, you're talking about a man that is a Pulitzer Prize winner.
Right.
Let's not
Start
discredit.
there.
Yeah, let's just stop there. He happens to use his brilliance in music, and we can dance to or twerk to or whatever your preference is of gyration. But this is a brilliant person, and they're creative. Like, it's going to be stuff going on, because why else are we going to watch it? But some of the feedback that people were saying was just weird. And I think they was haters.
Yeah, I was reading an analysis of something talking about the game over when the stadium went dark and the words were lit up. And I heard a lot of different people saying that meant a lot of things. His show was done, just a lot of different things. But this particular writer, his name is Jacob Slankard with MSN, said his final message to millions of Americans was one advocating them to unplug from the corporate media machine and get together to organize against the powers that
Kind
be.
of fight.
Now, I said, I think that's nice. And I like, what people are saying. I like when somebody sees something of mine and then they're, what she really meant by that. It keeps the conversation going. But I don't think that an artist that's benefiting from this being attached to a corporate machine is telling y'all to not listen to it, right? So for me, I'm like, I don't know if that's what it meant. I really took away he was like, how the athletes or whoever, you win the game, it's like, I got the trophy, I won the points, we win it, game over, we're on top. But even if so, I think he would have just said, it's time to unplug from the, hold on, I can't rap.
Game over for me was the fact that, okay, I done told y'all what we need to do. Wake up. Game over. That's the way I took it. Wake up.
And certainly could be, for sure, right? I also think it's like He trying to be the rap. He trying to be the rap king. I think he said he got the game of
I
entertainment.
appreciate him because, and I even posted it on Facebook. We can do more than just sing and dance, right? And he took his art to create a message on many different levels that's going to actually go down in history as you see it. There was so many messages that people needed to see and needed to hear, and people are still analyzing it. And when he said game over, I look at it as like, okay, now it's our turn. It's time for us to get to work. Now stop.
I mean, I can see that. You the whole president of the NAACP. I can see you interpreting in that way. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying, y'all. We got to step out our comfort zone. We got to get to work.
I mean, for sure. Yeah.
Well, ladies, we are just about out of time.
Gentlemen.
And gentlemen, I
she was telling me
you, Eric, because you've been such a critical part of this conversation today. I haven't forgotten you, but I did want to wish these ladies a happy Valentine's Day. Spend some time with the gals in your life who you love and celebrate each other today. And if you have a boo, happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Thank you all so much. That is going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week on Another View, Barbara will be back in the host chair, and she'll be joined by country music artist Roberta Lee. Our theme music is an original composition that was created just for Another View by our very own Jay Sennett. Jay, thank you so much for doing that for us. There you go. I'd like to thank Dr. Barry Graham, who sat in my chair today and produced the show. Thank you so much, Barry. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. She keeps things together around here. And Neil Johnson answered our phones. Thank you for being here, Neil. I want to wish my daughter Jordan a very happy birthday today. You guys enjoy the rest of the week.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.